será amanhã, aqui em Ponte Sor, vamos também acompanhar esse momento, a primeira competição internacional universitária de lançamento de rockets. Agora, no auditório principal, está na hora de falarmos de regulamentação e, portanto, vamos tentar ligar, não no auditório principal, corrijo, isto de ter tanta gente a entrar um pouco por todo o mundo também confunde um pouco, desta vez não é no auditório, é sim através de entrada remota. Marilia Frias, está aí desse lado? Está a ouvir-me? Bom dia.
Bom dia, estou sim a ouvi-lo. Não sei se me consegue ver.
Perfeitamente, está muito bem.
Ótimo. Enfim, assumo que posso dar início à apresentação.
Com certeza, vamos a isso.
Está a ouvir-me?
Estou a ouvi-la perfeitamente, vamos a isso.
Ok.
Está muito
em primeiro
bem.
lugar, muito obrigada por me terem aqui. Eu preparei uma apresentação em inglês porque assumi que era em inglês, portanto eu vou seguir em inglês. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Marilia and I'm a Managing Associate at VDA Almeida e Associados. VDA is a full-service law firm based in Lisbon, which through VDA Legal Partners has 13 offices around the world, mostly in Portuguese and French-speaking countries. At VDA, we have a team that is dedicated to aviation, space and defense, and this is to where I belong, and this is why I'm here. Today, I'm going to speak about some of the current regulatory tendencies in the aviation sector, and I divided this presentation in two parts. So the first part is mainly on the regulatory tendencies that were affected by COVID-19. The second part are other tendencies that, although they may have been affected by COVID-19, they were there anyway. So I will share my screen. I don't know if you are able to see it. Hopefully you can see it. So the first part, it's about COVID-19 pandemic and regulatory trends. And here I just show some numbers. Everyone knows that the aviation industry has been seriously impacted by COVID-19 crisis. This is just some numbers that I took from ICAO website, and you have there the sources. And I don't think we should take a lot of time with this because, I mean, everyone knows this. So the first trend that I would like to highlight, it's about health and safety guidelines. On an international level, we have selected these guidelines because obviously they try to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. So we chose two examples because we believe it's the most important ones, or at least from our perspective. So the International Civil Aviation Organization, through the Council Aviation Recovery Task Force, CART, has produced a report, and one of the documents that is contained in that report, it's the takeoff guidance for air travel through the COVID-19 public health crisis. This is a very important document, and because it provides a framework for addressing the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the global aviation transportation system. Among other matters, this document addresses public health risk mitigation matters and is divided in two sections on this part. Well, it contains generally applicable risk mitigation matters that apply to all phases of air passenger and air cargo, such as physical distancing, face covering and mask, routine sanitation, contact tracing and testing. The second section is divided in some specific modules. It includes aircraft, airport, crew, and cargo. On EASA, and you can see there a picture, it's about a very important document, which is COVID-19 Aviation Health Safety Protocol. It was prepared by EASA along with the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And it's also a guidance to airport operators, aircraft operators, and national competent authorities, and as well as other authorities and potential stakeholders. Among other things, it has guidance on management of passengers, and it's presented in a very interesting way, which follows this sequence. The guidance that must be taken care of at all times before arriving to the departure airport, at the airport, on board of the aircraft, and at the arrival of the airport. On the next slide, we show some main topics and list the main regulatory topics that we thought would be interesting to address and that they were affected by COVID-19 somehow. So in relation to the common rules for the operation of air services in the community, the regulation 1008 and 2008 was amended. So operating licenses may be suspended or even revoked if the financial health of the air carrier is jeopardized. So, and this would obviously give a negative signal to the market. And in order to avoid this situation and to try to replace these licenses with temporary licenses, it was stated that provided that safety is not a risk and there is a realistic prospect of a satisfactory financial reconstruction within 12 months, this will not be applicable. As regards traffic rights, so the traffic rights may be limited or may be refused or imposed certain conditions on the exercise of those traffic rights. This was specifically stated in Regulation 1008-2008, specifically because of COVID-19.
Doutora Marilia.
As regard... Sorry?
Está a ouvir-me, doutora Marilia?
Sim, sim.
Aqui de Pontessor. Sou obrigado a interrompê-la só por causa de um detalhe. Não estamos
Diga.
a ver a sua apresentação.
Ai, que horror, eu já estou aqui há um tempo.
Pronto, mas até agora foi perceptível. Tentámos deixar andar a ver se dava para não interromper e se conseguimos resolver esse problema. Consegue ver o que se passa?
Vou ver. Desculpe. Não estou a perceber qual é o problema.
A minha sugestão é que consegue imaginar esta sua apresentação sem nós conseguirmos ver aquilo que está a apresentar?
Espera aí. Eu vou... Mas vê-me a mim e não vê mais nada?
Assim, vemos perfeitamente e está muito bem. Não vemos as apresentações. Isso é que não. Agora sim.
Consegue ver agora?
Agora sim. Está resolvido. Vamos em frente.
Ok.
Obrigado.
Pronto, então eu vou continuar onde estava. Era aqui que estava. Portanto, estávamos nos European Union level regulatory requirements. So we have the topic that we were discussing is ground handling services. So whenever there's contract or authorizations granted to suppliers of ground handling services that expire in the period, in a certain period, in this case it's 28 May until 21 December, it may be prolonged until 21 December 2022. If for the period from 1 March 2020 until December of this year, where a supplier of ground handling services ceases its activity before the end of the period for which it was selected, the managing body of the airport or the competent authority of the member state may choose a ground handling service provider directly to provide the services for a maximum period of 6 months or for a period until 21 December 2012, whichever is longer. So the next topic is slot allocation, which is, as everyone knows, it used to be a hot topic, but now it is a hot topic because of other reasons. Because as I'm sure everyone knows, there's a general rule, which is use it or lose it. And airlines are required to use at least 80% of the time during the scheduling period for which they have been allocated, these slots, obviously. And if they do not, they may lose them. So what was stated was that slots allocated during a certain period of time are deemed as being used. So the period in the beginning was 1 March 2020 to 24 October 2020, and it has been extended now until 27 March 2021. This is a recent diploma of 14 October who set for this extension. The next topic, it's air passengers and air cargo. So here, obviously, passengers have been very much affected by this crisis, obviously. So it was issued some interpretive guidelines on passenger rights that specifically addressed a regulation that sets forth those rights. And the topics there that were addressed was right to reimbursement or rerouting, right to care, and right to compensation. Another very important thing as regards these guidelines was that they stated as, or they deemed as extraordinary circumstances, basically the COVID. What is said is that where public authorities either outright prohibit certain flights or ban the movement of persons in a manner that excludes de facto the flight in question to be operator, or where the airline decides to cancel a flight and shows that this decision was justified on grounds of protecting the health of the crew, these situations are deemed as extraordinary circumstances. And this is really important because it won't be there a right of compensation if there's an extraordinary circumstance. Obviously, there are other rights, but obviously it's not the same if this requirement is or isn't met. It was also issued a recommendation as regards vouchers, and the idea was to the extent possible, make them as more attractive as possible, because obviously the industry is interested in using them, and they are applicable as an alternative to reimbursement in money and subject to the passengers or voluntary acceptance. Obviously, this is not only for air passengers, but it's also applicable to air passengers. As regards air cargo, obviously there was a concern about making sure that air cargo could flow, because this is really important to the member states. So the European Commission issued guidelines facilitating air cargo operations during the COVID-19 outbreak. This was meant to encourage member states to implement a series of potential measures for the duration of the COVID-19 crisis to facilitate air cargo transport and help reduce additional cost. There are a lot of measures. We don't have time to go through all of them, but it's a document that it's worth reading. So next, I will address on a national level. Obviously, there were flight restrictions, we have seen all over the world. But ANAC has made an effort to provide some flexibility that was needed for the industry, and issued a lot of, in Portuguese, CIAs, aeronautical information circulars. If we can translate it this way, and they covered various aviation players. So I just mentioned some. There were others. There are aeronautical maintenance personnel, the students or cadets that train at ATOs that needed the extensions of validity periods or licenses. Also, there were measures concerning medical certificates and the validity periods of these medical certificates. Also, regarding training of aeronautical and ground handling personnel, obviously there are checks and regular training that should be carried out, and there's validity periods for this too. So this would had to be taken care of. Another example is crew members' flight and duty time limitations. There was some flexibility there too, and also as regards air traffic controllers. This was the first part of the presentation that I was referring to, regulatory tendencies that were directly affected by COVID-19. Now, the second part, I chose other regulatory trends that are not directly impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, but they are important trends, and obviously they are somehow affected by the pandemic. But it was not crucial. The first one is unmanned aircraft systems and the use space. As probably you know, this framework for the rules and procedures for the operation of unmanned aircraft were approved in 2019. They were meant to be applicable this year, but due to COVID-19 pandemic, its applicability was delayed, and now they shall apply from 31 December 2020, so December this year. But this is still a very, very important topic. From the statutes that are seen in the screen, the first one refers to the operations, and it's going to be is the one that I was mentioning that is going to be applicable on January in practical terms. And on the right side, it's another statute also applicable to unmanned aircraft systems, but it's already being applied. As regards the use space, as you know, use space is the term used in the European Union to refer to the management or traffic of traffic for unmanned aircraft. It is being discussed, the framework, and it is meant to set a set of services provided in a very specific volume of airspace designated by the member states to manage a large number of unmanned aircraft system operations in a safe and efficient manner. Obviously, the unmanned aircraft system must have a specific airspace and must have rules so that drones can be operated safely. On this matter, there's an EASA opinion from this year, but this is it's going on and it's a hot topic. Finally, and to end my presentation, I chose another topic, which is single European sky and the environment. They are somehow related. Very recently, the European Commission has proposed, actually was just last month, amendments to the single European sky regulatory framework. I copied here a statement from the Commissioner for Transport, and she said today's proposal to revise the single European sky will not only help cut aviation emissions by up to 10% from a better management of flight path, but also stimulate digital innovation by opening up the market for data services in this sector. With the new proposed rules, we help our aviation sector advancing on the dual green and digital transition. So this is a very important topic. And the last one, it's about the recent Council decision as regards the notification of voluntary participation in the CORSIA. As you know, CORSIA is a carbon offsetting and reducing scheme for international aviation, and it is a very important initiative, an international initiative. And it's very good to know that the European Union is aligned in this very important initiative. So this is what I had to present to you. I hope you have liked it, and I hope I have contributed to the fruitful discussion around aviation regulatory matters. Thank you.
Okay.